This is not simply an attack on Attorney General Tish James. This is an attack on our city. This is a blatant miscarriage of justice.
Breaking today, New York City's Democrat Socialist mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani backing New York Attorney General Letitia James after a federal grand jury indicted her on charges of bank fraud. Prosecutors say she falsely claimed a Virginia rental property as a second home to secure better loan terms. James denies any wrongdoing. Fox News contributor and constitutional law attorney Jonathan Turley joins us now. Do you see anything wrong with what she did, Jonathan? Welcome.
Well, I don't remember Mamdani coming out and denouncing James when she ran for office on the pledge to nail Donald Trump for something, not even specifying what it might be, or when she charged him in a fraud case where no one lost money. And in fact, the banks wanted additional loans from Trump and his organization. None of these people were objecting to any of that lawfare. Now, does that mean that this is a lead pipe cinch of a case or that there's not problems? Of course not. This is going to be a tough case for the Department of Justice to be able to land. While they got this case out of New York, it's in a very blue district in Virginia. And also, there's going to be some threshold challenges here, and one of them has some merit. It doesn't mean it's going to prevail. James is likely to say that the acting U.S. attorney who signed off on these charges was not appropriately appointed and therefore should not have held that office. And if that is the case, then the indictment would go down.
Well, to the overall case itself, though, I want to rewind the clock back to February 16th of last year, when Letitia James really was, I guess, for lack of a better word, bragging about the fact that she was trying to hold Donald Trump to account, saying, quote, "When powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of hardworking people. Everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank to get a mortgage. And if they did, our government would throw the book at them. There simply cannot be different rules for different people." It's a little ironic, I think, in hindsight.
Well, John, what's really ironic is she just asked for $500 million of damages against Trump in a case where no one lost any money. In fact, the bank made money. In this case, the government's alleging that she made serious money, that by misrepresenting the status of this property, she made thousands of dollars. And so, unlike her case, they can actually cite to money that ended up benefiting her. Now, does that mean that they can make this case with an entire jury in Northern Virginia? I think the odds still favor James. There's also a good chance that this technicality that she's likely to raise could delay the case. The argument is that the president has 120 days to assign an acting U.S. attorney, but he had already used that period with her predecessor. And there's also a suggestion that the reason that predecessor was let go or forced out is that he was not going to sign off on this prosecution. So it's going to get very messy very fast in this case.
Jonathan, we'll finish off with on whether this is political retribution on the part of President Trump. This is A.G. Bondi taking a question on that, on whether Trump was pressuring the DOJ to go after his enemies, including James Comey. Listen.
President Trump is the most transparent president in American history, and I don't think he said anything that he hasn't said for years. Comey was indicted in the Eastern District of Virginia by, I may point out, one of the most liberal grand juries in the country.
I'm gonna get a last thought from you on that, Jonathan.
Well, both Comey and James are likely to make two claims: vindictive prosecution, selective prosecution. Those are very difficult claims to make in court. They will be citing President Trump in that posting of his, complaining that why haven't you indicted these people? And that is going to be the central piece of evidence they use to try to make out those claims.
But how different is that, Professor, than Tish James campaigning on, "I'm going to get Trump"?
It's not different, but the question is whether they will be able to prevail now in federal court. James went to New York court and got a very favorable judge. We'll see how this plays out. But those types of cases, and I've made those types of arguments in court as criminal defense attorney, they are very hard to make. Judges do not like to look at motivations if there is an otherwise valid crime in the indictment.
Jonathan Turley on all of that for us. Good to see you. Thank you.
New York's top prosecutor is now facing her own legal battle. A federal grand jury indicted New York Attorney General Letitia James yesterday on a bank fraud charge following a Justice Department investigation. James, if you remember, had prosecuted President Trump in a massive civil case. She ran her campaign largely on a promise to prosecute the president. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy with more. Hey, Peter.
Julie, good morning. Just like we saw with James Comey a few weeks ago, when a prominent Trump critic gets indicted, one of the first things that they do is record a video and post it to social media, just like Tish James, now accused of mortgage fraud. Here.
These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost. The president's actions are a grave violation of our constitutional order and have drawn sharp criticism from members of both parties.
Attorney General James is not letting a good indictment go to waste, raising money with this email blast. We must show right now that the American people reject this dangerous political revenge campaign. I'm calling for 20,000 rapid response donations today to send an unmistakable message: we won't back down. Will you rush a donation? And she's got top Democrats with her.
I just spoke with Tish James, and this is what tyranny looks like. Donald Trump has turned the Justice Department into his personal attack dog to go after his political enemies. This is tyranny. This is outrageous.
Since coming back to office, President Trump has insisted that prosecutorial decisions about who to indict and who not to indict are handled entirely outside of his control and by the Justice Department. President Trump has not spoken about this yet. He did not talk on his way to Walter Reed for his physical, but we'll see him later. Julie?
All right, Peter Doocy live at the White House. Thank you very much. It's a busy place there today.
Well, New York Attorney General Letitia James has been indicted on charges of banking fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. James and her fellow Democrats say the prosecution is politically motivated, citing her 2020 lawsuit against President Trump. James released this video statement yesterday. Watch.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General. These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost.
Let's bring in Paul Morrow, attorney, retired NYPD inspector and Fox News contributor. Okay, so we know this doesn't surprise us that she would come out and say this, obviously, and that Democrats are going to use this as a political, talking point. But doesn't this case have teeth?
It does, and I have to tell you that all you need to do is read the indictment to see that it does, because it's a very simple, plain-spoken indictment, which is crucial in a financial case, because in financial cases, they can get very complicated. You could potentially lose the jury. This one doesn't have that. Now, to clear something up, the primary residence issue is not here. That was the initial allegation we all heard about from the power of attorney form. What it comes down to is the following. She signed the operative paperwork to get the loan, saying that the house in Virginia is going to be a second house, not an investment property, a second house for her to go to herself. She's not allowed to have somebody there renting it. Okay, that's how she gets the loan. She then takes her paperwork for her taxes and puts on her tax forms that it is an investment property and, in fact, has write-offs relative to the investment property. So internally, it's inconsistent by her own paperwork. By getting the lower rate for a non-investment property, she saved about $19,000 to this point. That is the crux of the allegation.
Okay, and so here's a senator from Michigan, Alyssa Slotkin. This is what she told CNN on Thursday.
Just as part of a bigger trend of the President of the United States using the Department of Justice, using the legal system to go after political adversaries, using the arms of our democracy to go after political adversaries. It's just a broken way to do politics.
I wonder what you think about that, because nobody said that at the beginning when Letitia James went after Trump for the same thing.
Yeah, pretty rich when you consider the fact that that was her promise in coming into office as the Attorney General, that she was going to be using her office to go after Donald Trump, which is really not her remit as supposedly the top law enforcement officer in New York. And let's recognize something else. She also got through, it had to be for her sake, through Albany, a $10 million fund for anybody who has federal government coming after them for what they've done on the job and off the job, anybody that's been targeted. So she's saying she hasn't accessed that fund yet. $10 million. She's got a high-priced lawyer, Abby Lowell. So I have a feeling the citizens of New York are going to be paying for Abby Lowell's swimming pool. So that $10 million is sitting there waiting for her to access it. The legislature put it through. The governor, Kathy Hochul, signed off on it. But here's the thing. The stakes for her are very high here because they're not going to plead this out. And if she gets convicted on a felony, which this is, she loses her law license and she has to step down. Essentially, she's going to be unemployable in public life in New York.
I want to go down to Jersey really quickly here. We've got this crazy governor's race. It's getting very, very heated, and there was a big debate last night. Jack Ciattarelli says he's going to sue his opponent, Mikey Sherrill, over this comment. Let's listen.
What New Jersey doesn't know is much about his business, how he made his millions, by working with some of the worst offenders and saying that opioids were safe, putting out propaganda. Tens of thousands of New Jerseyans died. And as if that wasn't enough, then he was paid to develop an app so that people who were addicted could more easily get access to opioids. And so as he made millions, as these opioid companies made billions, tens of thousands of New Jerseyans died.
Okay, so that debate happened Wednesday night. I mean, there's always personal attacks. There's always things that people say that are vastly incorrect about their opponent. What makes this different?
So to tease this out, essentially what happens is the following. He has a publishing company. They publish medical stuff. A University of Tennessee study gets published through his publishing company. They controlled, that is the University of Tennessee, controlled all the editorial content. And this is going to come down to one of these things. So what does the language exactly say? What did she exactly say, et cetera? The crux of it is the pharmaceutical companies underwrote, paid for some of the study, some of the publication, which is apparently very common in this field. Here's the issue. So my estimation, that is very close to the line. If nothing else, it's really icky. All right, because, you know, she's essentially saying you're a murderer. The thing is this, he's a public figure, and a defamation case against it is very tough to win. The bar is higher. It has to be actual malice or really, really reckless. And then even the standard of proof is higher. So it's a tough case, but we all know it's not about winning the case. It's going to be about the politics of him pushing back on her and saying, you've defamed me, you're out of line, I'll see you in court, and, you know, making his bones that way.
We're going to see more of it because she puts it out there. It's in a debate. He says that he's going to sue. It's like getting a correction in the New York Times.
Exactly.
It's like one sentence. It doesn't matter. But this race is now pretty much tied. So you're going to see more from her because she's going to get a little desperate.
And I think that's really what's going on here. She's starting to feel her back against the wall.
A federal grand jury in Virginia has indicted New York Attorney General Letitia James on criminal charges after an investigation by the Department of Justice.
Chanley Painter has the details. Good morning, Chanley.
Hey, good morning. So New York Attorney General Letitia James facing federal mortgage fraud charges after prosecutors say she falsely claimed a home in Virginia as her second residence while using it as a rental property. A federal grand jury finding that she was then able to obtain more optimal loan terms. Well, James now faces a 2-count indictment, including 1 count of bank fraud and 1 count of making false statements to a financial institution. Each count carries a potential sentence of up to 30 years in prison and up to $1 million in fine and forfeiture.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost. I stand strongly behind my office's litigation against the Trump organization.
Critics of President Trump say he called on the Justice Department to bring charges against James as retribution for previous lawsuits she brought against the commander-in-chief during his first term, something that those in the administration and federal prosecutors, of course, deny. The U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia say this, quote, no one is above the law. The charges as alleged in this case represent intentional criminal acts and tremendous breaches of the public's trust. The facts and the law in this case are clear, and we will continue following them to ensure that justice is served. James is set to be arraigned on October 24th. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, you're not supposed to say untruths to banks.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
And you really can't talk about weaponization when you have a person that campaigned on getting Donald Trump and then did it once they became the attorney general. I just don't have the appetite to hear about.
She would sit in the court, kick off her shoes, and just watch the whole trial every single day.
I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president.
We're going to definitely sue. We're going to be a real pain in the He's going to know my name personally.
I look forward to going into the office of Attorney General every day, suing him.
Tish getting what she dished. New York AG Letitia James indicted on mortgage fraud. After spending years weaponizing the courts against Trump and his businesses, she's suddenly crying foul about weaponization.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost.
But CNN says, what's the big deal? Everybody commits a little mortgage fraud.
What Tish James, and again, we're still getting the details, but if it's related to this mortgage issue, I mean, this is something that everyone in America, or many people at least, if you're lucky enough to be able to buy a house in America, you deal with this. Right? The federal government doesn't go after all of these people for doing this.
Emily, it looks like they have her dead to rights. She filled out the form, she lied, she even reported the rental income on her taxes.
Look, I can't speak to what will happen actually in court and to the evidence. However, yes, it seems obvious. And here's what I hate the most about the commentary. The concept that either everyone does it or that it's no big deal is such an affront to the millions of Americans that get that pit in our stomach every year when we see the audit or the IRS and have to do our taxes and actually go overboard to make sure that every penny lines up. I have had friends audited for less than a few $1,000s. I've had clients that have been audited in the $30,000 range or less. And I did a snapshot of what happens in just 1 year. And in 1 year alone, for example, the U.S. Sentencing Commission has over 57,000 mortgage fraud offenses referred to them. That is that specific charge referred to them. The FBI investigating almost 4,000 in 1 year, 30% of which are under $1 million. So the concept that somehow it has to be a big deal or it has to be in the millions to have some impact doesn't hold water, because good, hardworking Americans follow the law all day, every day. And when you don't, then I guess you become a con man or a carnival barker, which is what the language that this AG used about someone else that was actually totally innocent.
Paul, whose post-indictment video was better, Comey's or Tish James's?
Yeah, they're both atrocious. And you know what? The sanctimony embedded in both of them is just so insufferable. And as Emily says, the idea that somehow or other everybody does is just not true. I've brought mortgage fraud cases. Now, you could argue the following, that as a federal case, it's a comparatively low number. But that said, you forget, she is a public servant. She's supposed to be the top law enforcement officer in all of New York State. So that said, that's the justification for doing this way federally. But let's remember something else. Donald Trump did not indict her. In one of the bluest jurisdictions in this country, a jury of her peers indicted her. And by the way, that's adjacent right there in the Washington area, where the Trump administration has lost a number of indictments. Remember the guy that threw the hero sandwich at the cop?
Yes.
They didn't get that indictment right in the same area. So it just shows you this is the process. You want to gripe about this, then take it up with the grand jury. There's a couple of overlays real quick. The leak that went to MSNBC, I think, is significant. There's leaks that came out earlier in the week saying, oh, they're not going to go with this case. They decided there's no probable cause. And it was 2 DOJ members, according to MSNBC, that did that leak significantly to MSNBC. There needs to be now a follow-on leak investigation, because that's deep state nonsense. They were trying to put their finger on the scale to say, okay, if this goes this way, we can claim, you know what, we didn't want to bring this case, and Trump forced it down our throats.
Right.
And then lastly,
happened with Comey.
Exactly. And
Literally the same thing.
Remember something, too. In this case, there is a victim. In the Trump case that she brought against Trump,
Exactly.
there was no victim. The banks were on board. He paid them back. In this case, who lost the $19,000? We did.
Yeah, we paid.
Because
We
of Fannie
did.
Mae.
What's
We federally
19,000
lost it.
divided by 5? We should split it. Jillian?
Well, I was going to say, if in order for everybody to commit this kind of mortgage fraud in America, everybody has to own more than one home, which most people don't. So there's an inherent bias built in there off
She's got
the
3,
bat.
reportedly.
I mean, Emily, you probably can talk to this better than I can, but I was talking to a lawyer earlier who was saying this case is just going to really come down to the paperwork. The defense is going to be kind of built around her claiming, or how well she can make the case that this was like her tax attorney's machination. She didn't really have much to do with it or much input or really know about it. So in discovery, when they go through all the emails and whatever else, like, it'll all come out and this will go or not go based on what's in there.
Well, and also, I mean, no matter what, she materially benefited. And so that whole defense of like, I didn't know better or I'm so sorry, well, there are remedies that are then commensurate with that. The whole point is if you prove intentionality and you prove intent to deceive, then, well, the punishment will fit the crime. Sorry, Greg, go on.
All right, Greg, you know more about fraud than anybody because you are one.
That's right. This is Brett Hume. So, my good friend Molly Hemingway once told me, no, I love this because the Dems thought they had a solid, like, 95% gamble. You could hunt Trump down and hunt other Republicans down under the assumption that they're finished, they're done. But as they say, if you go for the king, you better make sure the job is done. Trump is now the man with no name in High Plains Drifter. They thought they had him, but now he's painting the town red. You can call it revenge, but I'll get to that. Turnabout is fair play. Remember, nothing that Trump does, whether he doesn't do this or not, is going to affect the Democrats' behavior after this. Like, you'll hear people say, like, well, if he does this, then they're going to do that. It's like, no, you were going to do that anyway, because you started this mess. This lady's career was predicated on a vow that she was going to take Trump down. Remember, she did that in a video. And the hilarity of the media and the Democrats doing this two wrongs don't make a right stuff. I'm sorry. If Jesse punches me in the face, I should be able to punch it back, even if I can't reach his face. But the thing is, it's like, you don't have that argument. You know, it's like they came after us. That was lawfare. They thought they had it. It was going to be great, but it's wrong. It didn't, and now you got to pay the price. Don't get mad at us. Don't get mad at us. This is justice. So the only solution is mutually assured destruction. If you know that I will fight back if you attack, then you won't initiate the attack. Jesse won't hit me because he knows I'll hit him back. That's why people have NRA stickers on their front porch.
That's why people have nuclear weapons.
Yeah, so right, Jillian, so right. It's why I wear tight shirts. So people see the muscles in my body. It's a non-violent signal to warn off aggressors who think they might be, you know, able to handle it, but it says, you know, you're biting off more than you can chew.
Again, People Magazine,
Peace
world's
through
sexiest
strength.
man, right here.
Yeah.
Next year is your year.
I'm wearing a half shirt tonight.
Peace through strength.
Peace, yes.
Up
That's
next.
what they call it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.